Ask you, Father in heaven, to give us the wisdom, to give us the knowledge as we discuss the issues that are pertaining to our nation, Zambia. We pray that Jehovah God, let your Holy Spirit be with us, be among us. Give us the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding. We pray, Father God, for our presidents who are present here, Jehovah God, that you alone will guide them. You alone will be a lamp upon their feet. You will be a light and you give them direction in whatever they do with this nation of Zambia. We honor you, we glorify you, we exalt your name. We cover this nation of Zambia with the blood of Jesus Christ. Father Jesus Christ, you say, my peace I live with you, and my peace I give to you. May that peace remain in our nation of Zambia through Jesus Christ our Savior. Amen. Amen. May be seated. Just to thank you all for coming here at very short notice. This press briefing has been called by the Opposition Alliance. I'm sure by now you know who the members of the Alliance are. Last evening they had a meeting of the presidents who are members of the Alliance, at which they made certain decisions. And this meeting for today was called from last night, and hence the short notice. But thank you very much that you were able to make it at very short notice. As you are aware, we have two programs today. Apart from this press briefing, we have another event, and that is one of our members, who is our president, the consultant for NDC, Honorable Kambwili, will be reporting himself at the police. So from here, we are all moving, and we hope the members of the press can follow us there. And so for this morning, I want to hand over this whole event to the chairperson of the Opposition Alliance, President Mulupi of the ADD. Thank you.
Good morning, members of the press, fellow presidents in the Alliance, the hosting president, Church, members of the UKMB. Because of the state of the country, Zambia, we in the Opposition Alliance, there are so many things that we are tied up in order to put our country right. And that is why you find that we deal with so many subjects. What we dealt with yesterday, the day before, you find that today we are dealing with a totally different subject, because we are dealing with various angles of this country. Today, this press conference is called specifically to deal with the issue of the constitution-making process that the PF and this government are trying to hijack. The constitution is the fundamental law of this country, and we in the Opposition Alliance cannot allow a situation where these people mess around with the constitution so that they can continue in government for the sole purpose of continuing to abuse the resources of this nation and to abuse the citizens of this country. As you have heard, we have an issue with our colleague here who has been summoned to the police, so we will have to finish war in advance. Today's speakers will be just two, to make sure that we address the issue that needs to be addressed and allows us time to participate in the other program. So, Honorable CK Kambwili is in Parliament. So what the PF government are trying to do in Parliament, these are the people that can look after our interests. President HH has got members in Parliament. So these are the ones that we have selected, and they will address the issue. So therefore, without further ado, we call upon the famous consultant to come and
Thank you very much. Good morning, members of the press, and welcome everybody to this very, very short but to the point press briefing. You may be aware that on Friday, the Minister of Justice came to Parliament and announced that they intend to go ahead with the Constitution amendment process without first having gone to the National Dialogue. we agreed as all stakeholders that the amendment to the Constitution and the amendment to the Public Order Act will be issues that will be tabled at the dialogue. But you members of the press and the country may wish to know that PF has tried by all means to sabotage the national dialogue. And the reason for them to sabotage the national dialogue is for them to do what they want to do now. Because they don't want those issues to be discussed in the national dialogue, where we can agree to disagree on certain provisions in the Constitution. Now they want to take a route where they are going to spend 2 million of taxpayers' money. Because if we meet at the national dialogue, all stakeholders will be there. We'll go through the amendment of the Constitution, article by article. We agree to disagree, so that when it goes to Parliament, there should be no any debate whatsoever, but to merely implement what will be agreed at the national dialogue. But PF wants to manipulate the Constitution by bringing in certain issues that will favor their stay in power in the Constitution. Honorable Lubinda announced a number of meetings that they want to undertake. I think if my count was correct on Friday, there were over 20 meetings that they want to do between now and June in order to agree on the provisions and the amendment to the Constitution. But I think as an alliance we are saying we are not prepared to participate in PF and Lubinda's proposed roadmap until the issues are brought to the national dialogue. What we are calling upon PF is that let them put their house in order and make sure that the dialogue is held before the Constitution amendment process. Anything less than that will not participate. And I want to warn PF, I want to warn President Edgar Lungu and Minister of Justice that the Constitution is not like any other law that you need simple majority. You need 2/3 to pass the amendment to the Constitution. And we want to tell them that myself, other independents, and the entire UPND MPs will not be part of that process. Meaning, therefore, that if we are not going to participate, then there will be no amendment that they are proposing, because they don't have the 2/3 majority. So if they are reasonable enough, let us talk, let us dialogue, let us agree first to go to the national dialogue. Without national dialogue, stop spending the money on that constitution process, because it will not see the day of light. Unless they want to be arrogant and do what they want just for the purpose of spending money unnecessarily, let them go ahead with the meetings. But they must know that will not be part and parcel of their trickery or crookedness, where they want everything to be done their own way. This country belongs to all of us. And I think by and large, we must all participate. More especially, the Constitution is not a constitution of the PF. It's not the constitution of Parliament. It's not the constitution of NGOs. It is the constitution for all of us Zambians. And therefore, we must do the right thing. I mean, since independence, we've had so many constitution-making processes, and at the end of it all, what comes out is that there is no consensus. For once, we are calling on the PF to be reasonable, so that from the beginning, there is consensus through the national dialogue. Without consensus through the national dialogue, count us out. You can go ahead and pass that constitution. It will be called PF Lubinda Constitution. I thank you. Thanks.
I now call upon Chilema.
Thank you, President. Thank you very much, media, for coming to this location this morning. I know the notice was short. Thank you to my fellow colleagues, presidents, for agreeing to come to this place again for this quick press briefing. The chairman has already, our chairman of the Alliance has already articulated why we're here, and my colleague, Consultant Chishimba Kambwili, has spoken most of the issues. I just want to emphasize a few things so that we can get things in the right perspective. Because if we don't, the manipulation of the PF will continue misleading the nation why we have taken this position, why we believe this is the correct position. I think the first issue my colleague, Consultant Chishimba Kambwili, has already articulated is an acceptance that the Constitution is for the people. The Constitution is by the people themselves. In other words, the people of Zambia, 17 million of them, through a process that is acceptable as inclusive, should be able to give themselves a constitution. Not a political party, ADD, UPND, NDC, People's Party, APC, any. No, it is the people. And therefore, one party, whether it's in office or not, cannot use Parliament, because Parliament is the child of the people's constitution. So Parliament cannot be the decider of the constitution for the people of Zambia. So I think he has articulated that very well. I just want to reinforce that position so we are not misunderstood, because we know the mentality of PF. They rush this thing to Parliament. If we take the position we've taken without explaining to the public, they will cry that we are the ones blocking the people's desire to have a new constitution. So the constitution must be derived by the people for themselves. That's important, you see? And we believe, as my colleague has said, dialogue right now, the platform of dialogue represents that consensus building opportunity. So they cannot escape that process. As he has said, they are dodging the dialogue process to avoid consensus of the people so they can manipulate the constitution using Parliament. Has this happened before? It did. I want to remind the citizens through this press briefing, in 2015 into 2016, the PF went and tabled in Parliament, the same Parliament, a constitutional amendment bill. And many of us argued that it was good to amend the constitution. We were naive. PF went ahead, manipulated the process, and we ended up with the constitution we have today, which really is a mess, a total mess. We all know that the constitution we have today has so many lacunas. The constitution we have today does not even make the Electoral Commission responsible. If there's still an election, they are not responsible, they cannot be prosecuted. This is the amendment that were made in 2015, although enacted in 2016 January. You all remember that. So the memories are clear in our minds that we should not allow this process without the people constructing for themselves the constitution through the dialogue process, as my colleague has said. I thought that's important. Let me bring another matter, which is very, very critical. My colleague touched on it. Let me just amplify it. Here is how the constitution is amended. Here is how the constitution is amended, or you give yourselves a new constitution. Under the current arrangements, there are two components that the nation needs to know. And that's why we're taking the position we've taken. One, in amending the constitution, you have to go to Parliament. The assumption being that the people have decided the content, the draft, as they wish the constitution to be. But we've already dealt with that. There is no opportunity for the people to decide. It's PF that wants to decide. But if that were the case, you go to Parliament, you table the motion constitutional amendment bill. To allow that constitution to be amended, the vote must be 2/3 majority. Please mark what I'm saying. My colleague touched on it. 2/3 majority, which after you achieve 2/3 majority. That's the first component of what I need the people to know, what we need the people to know. When you now go to the specific clauses that you want to change, it is a simple majority. I hope we are following each other here. It's a simple majority. Because it's a simple majority to change, for example, which we hear PF wants to do, to remove the 50% plus one, so that they come to simple majority, first past the post, so they can easily regain an election, right? It's easier that way. They will only require a simple majority, which the PF MPs on their own can actually amend. I hope you have followed. But to open the debate, they need the UPND MPs, they need consultant Chishimba Kambwili's vote, they need independent MPs' vote, and for the reasons of 2015 COCAP, the reasons of 2016 flawed constitution, which actually does not reflect the needs and the desires of the people of Zambia, hence the position we've taken that we will not support this motion that Luvinda is bringing to the House. Because it's like giving a murderer, your children are sleeping in the room and they are locked up in the room, and the murderer comes in and says, help me to open the room, and you give the murderer the key to open the room. They go inside that room and they murder your children. That's what PF wants to do. Who will have murdered the children? You will have been party to opening the door for the murderer to do what he wants to do, she wants to do in that house. It is for that reason that we are not supporting the PF motion in the House to amend the Constitution so they can do what they want against the wishes of the people, including perpetuate things such as corruption. And because these things are connected, I hope with this press briefing, you now understand that we will not support any maneuvers until we, the people, through the dialogue process, have agreed that these are the amendments we want. Only then we will open the key so that Parliament does not change anything. Parliament just enacts. And there are other things that we need to do. We don't have to explain. So by this press briefing and other measures, we are instructing, we are asking all members of Parliament for UPND, we've already done that for your own information, my colleague, consultant Chishimba Kambwili, and other well-meaning independent and even PF MPs must not entertain Luvinda's mess in Parliament. And we don't want to be misunderstood. Thank you. We don't want to be misunderstood by the PF propaganda machinery that we are blocking the need to amend the Constitution. I hope you now understand why we are doing. We ask for your support as a general public, but this time round, they will not have it at all. Take it from us. If they bring it tomorrow on Tuesday, it will not see the end of the day. It's dead until they come to the dialogue table. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Now it's time for the media to ask questions. We'll take 3 at a time. Your name, the organization you're representing, and then the question. If possible, let's have one question for media person. Yes,
Good morning. My name is Salim. I'm a freelance journalist. All stakeholders have unanimously agreed that going into 2021, constitutional amendments or constitutional reforms are required to have that election. If the constitutional amendment that the PF are looking for, and you oppose to them, and yet we need the amendments. What are you going to do to ensure that those amendments or those reforms are there before 2021?
Yes, madam.
My name is Pamela Mlanda from CBC TV. Thank you so very much for your presentation, the two leaders here. I just want to find out, following Justice Minister last year, he did indicate that he was going to write a letter to all opposition presidents so that you could participate in this constitutional amendment process. With the U-turn, I know you've indicated that you have directed your members of parliament, but on the basis that he said he had written a letter to you so that you can have together to talk about this amendment. Yes. So how are you going to stand and challenge? Because he said that he had written this letter to you, and now he wants that this should be in Parliament minus you, opposition president.
Yes.
My name is Ulan Ninkomisha. I'm from Live Radio. My question is, I just want to get a comment from the President of the UTNZ, on the delayed publication of the Commission of Inquiry findings on the 2016 voting pattern. Just a quick comment from you.
Chairman, are you going to direct me to answer those questions?
But I think the first question that Salim asked highlights why we have taken the decision that we have taken. He's saying that all stakeholders are agreed that we must have a better constitution for 2021. Yes, we agree. It must be amended. What we have not agreed are the specific articles that need to be amended. And if we haven't agreed that, why is PF going into Parliament to try to bring their own amendments? We smell the rats. We know that PF like comparing us to rats, but I think in this particular case. So, President, you have
Thank you. Yeah. Indeed, we smell a rat. Salim, your point is well made. I think President Melupi has touched on it. You can answer that question in a reverse way, but we must think in a versatile way. The 2015-2016 amendment was driven by fear. Why don't we have a good constitution today? 2016 and 2019 is only 2 years apart, 2.5 years old. It's because the process was flawed. It's because we allowed PF to do what they want without the people who own the constitution to decide the clauses to be changed, the lacunas that are there that need to be cleaned up, lacunas meaning really lack of clarity or overlaps or whatever you want to call it. We allowed PF, the woodwinked us that they meant well for the people. If they meant well for the people, we wouldn't have a constitution which is in such a mess that you can't even complete certain processes. A situation where there is a breakdown in the rule of law, complete breakdown in the rule of law because of these lacunas in the constitution. You have a ruling where ministers from PF were basically found guilty that they should repay the citizens for getting salaries after the dissolution of Parliament in 2016. But we have a constitution that does not allow us to enforce that ruling to collect the money. Who allowed that openness? It's a PF. Should we do it again? The answer is no. I hope we are clear there. We agree that we need to amend the constitution, but not by PF alone, but by the people. The other implied issue in your question is that we need the PF to stop thinking that they are the owners of this country. The owners of this country are the citizens. And when we say we'll do what we do, we are protecting the citizens. So the PF must come to the dialogue table. So they are hiding from dialogue, they are running away from dialogue, so that they can do the things they're trying to do using Luvinda. Luvinda thinks that, I don't want to use the rat's brain issue, thinks that we're not alert. We're very alert. We will not allow that to happen. And we're doing it for the people of Zambia. I think that's what's important. So 2021, we need to protect citizens from hooliganism, from violence. You saw it in Sekeng. You saw it in Lundazi. You saw it in Chililamombo. You saw it everywhere. We cannot live like that. PF must come to the table and dialogue. And then we can agree the clauses and how the clauses must be amended as a nation. I want to take, so I can allow my colleagues to take also other questions on the Justice Minister who wrote to us to participate. Maybe you can handle that. Let me finish on the last one. Thank you. Let me finish. I have very strong views about Luvinda's way of doing business, but I will leave my colleague to handle that. The delays in releasing the results of that commission on the voting pattern in 2016, does that not tell you as citizens that that commission of inquiry in the first place was unnecessary? Completely unnecessary. In a democracy, how can you ask people why they voted the way they voted? You are negating the very constitutional provision you went into a democracy. If you go to the States, United States of America, and you are a Democrat, you know that if you are running for elections, you have to focus on California because you will not win in Texas. Texas is generally a Republican state. It's the same in UK. If you are a Labour Party, it's difficult for you to win in mainland England. You have to focus on Scotland, you have to focus on Wales, you have to understand that. That's a democracy. So how can Zambia be different? Zambia cannot be different. The insinuation is there is that if you vote against PF, you must be investigated. If you vote for these opposition leaders, you must be investigated. So you must only vote for PF. You vote against PF, you vote for any one of us here, you are a wrong citizen. That means PF has not accepted multipartism. PF has not accepted a constitution that requires people to have freedom of choice. That's why they are beating us when we go to campaign, because they don't believe in democracy. After all, PF has said they prefer a one-party state. They've put it very clearly. And this brutality you see is a mentality of PF to have a one-party state. My message to them, it will not happen. It will not happen. There will be no one-party state in this country. We will not return to the UNIP days. It will not happen. And there are enough men and women in this country who are strong enough, and we are some of them. We work for the people. You must work for the people. Let's join hands to stop the dictatorship. I want to put it very cleanly here. Lungu and PF are tyrants. No question about it. We've seen what they're doing. They were hiding behind other forms. Today it's open for all to see. We have a tyrant running our country. We have tyrants running our country. We should say no to that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, let me just handle the question from my sister by simply saying politics is dynamic. Politics is dynamic. It's like you are building a house, your own house. You start the foundation. As you are building the house, you see that the wall is going off target. What do? You continue building, you break it down and start afresh. So if they wrote to the opposition saying that give us your submissions, you give your submissions in earnest, now they want to manipulate your submissions, what do? You continue, obviously you pull out. So there is no U-turn here. It's a question of being reasonable. And I think what was agreed is not being followed. You and I know that it was made very clear that the Public Order Act, the Constitution, will be the two main issues in the dialogue process, where there will be different stakeholders so that we agree to disagree. The question is, why is President Edgar Lungu avoiding the dialogue process? The only answer is manipulation. So it's not a question that there is a U-turn, but it's being reasonable by realizing that we are being used instead of being part of the decision. Thank you.
I'll take the last two questions because we're running out of time. We only have 3 more minutes. The last two questions, not 3. If there are any questions. I see that there are no other questions.
Thank you very much. We have to attend to other business. I think the matter has been made very clear. And in the same token, advise our various members of parliament